They marched into the desert with banners high, shields gleaming, and discipline unbroken. Thousands of Roman soldiers, hardened by years of war, stepped into the endless sands. And then, nothing. Not a single survivor returned. No bones. No weapons. No broken standards. Just silence. What happened to the Roman army that vanished in the desert? The story begins in the reign of Marcus Crassus, one of Rome's richest men and part of the first triumvirate with Caesar and Pompey. Crassus sought glory in the east, against the Parthian Empire, Rome's bitter rival. In 53 BC, he led more than 40,000 men across the scorching deserts of Mesopotamia, dreaming of conquest. But his arrogance would doom them. The Parthians, masters of cavalry warfare, crushed the Romans at the Battle of Carrhae. Thousands were slaughtered, and thousands more captured. But here lies the first mystery. Ancient sources hint that some of these captured Romans were not executed or enslaved. Instead, they were marched deeper east, perhaps to guard borders for the Parthian king. Some whisper they were taken as far as Central Asia. But the tale doesn't end there. Decades later, in a distant desert town, reports surfaced of strange warriors. They fought in tight formations, using shields locked together in a way no local army ever did. Chinese chronicles describe a mysterious foreign unit fighting along their western frontier, soldiers who fought like no one in Asia had ever seen. Could these have been the lost Romans? Back in Rome, rumors of their disappearance spread uneasily. A Roman legion was not supposed to vanish. It was said that the desert itself had swallowed them, an army erased from time. But generals and emperors could not ignore the possibility. If Rome's soldiers had survived, where had they gone? Were they mercenaries now, serving a foreign king? Or had they built their own forgotten city, far from home? The silence of the desert only deepened the mystery. Centuries later, travelers told of walls and fortresses built in strange, Roman fashion, in lands where no Roman army had ever marched. The desert winds carried whispers of a ghost legion, Roman soldiers who had been cut off from their empire, forced to forge a new life under alien skies. The sands kept their secret, but one truth remained. Somewhere, out there, an army had disappeared. And Rome never forgot. Imagine the humiliation in Rome. A superpower that prided itself on iron discipline, order, and eternal dominance had allowed an entire army to vanish into thin air. The defeat at Carrhae was more than just a military disaster. It was a wound on Rome's pride. Crassus himself was killed, his head sent as a trophy to the Parthian king. But the fate of his men was the darker mystery. Some prisoners were paraded through Parthian cities, mocked as symbols of Rome's weakness. Others were marched east, deeper into the empire. And here, the trail bends into legend. The historian Pliny the Elder claimed that survivors were resettled on the far-off eastern frontier of Parthia, near Margiana, an isolated desert region on the edges of modern Turkmenistan. Why would the Parthians do this? Perhaps to guard their border from nomadic raiders. The Romans, disciplined and skilled, would have been useful tools. Imagine it, soldiers who once shouted Roma Victor, now serving their conquerors at the edge of the world. Then, something even stranger appears in the records. In 36 BC, years after Carrhae, Roman-style troops may have fought in Central Asia. When a Chinese general named Gan Yanshou encountered a mysterious army on the western frontier of the Han Dynasty, he described them forming up in a fish-scale formation, shields overlapping just like the Roman testudo. These strange warriors fought fiercely but were captured and absorbed into Han service. Could they have been the lost Romans? Some historians think so. The Chinese sources speak of them being relocated to a frontier town called Legion. And here the whispers grow louder. Centuries later, travelers wrote of a village in western China where the people looked different, tall, with deep-set eyes, lighter hair, and a strange love for bullfighting. The locals claimed descent from soldiers of a foreign land. Rome's ghost army may have lived on, far from the empire, in a land their generals never even dreamed of. But back in the Mediterranean, the story transformed into something darker. For the Romans who remained, Carrhae became a lesson in hubris. They said the gods themselves punished Crassus for his greed. Some whispered that the desert was cursed, that any army who marched too deep into it would be swallowed. Generals feared it. Soldiers told each other stories of comrades who vanished and never returned. The desert itself became a mythic enemy, a place where men disappeared into silence. And yet, the idea that Roman soldiers might still be out there, living, fighting, even having children, haunted the empire. Were these lost legionaries waiting to return? Or had they forgotten Rome completely, becoming something else, something between East and West? The question refused to die. The silence of the desert holds more than just sand. It holds the voices of the legions that never returned. For centuries, storytellers whispered about the men of Carrhae. Some claimed they marched east until the horizon swallowed them. Others said they became mercenaries, selling their swords to whoever would pay, wandering from oasis to oasis like ghosts. And some believed they built new lives in foreign lands, never again speaking the names of Rome or Crassus. But what if the truth was more incredible than legend? Archaeologists have long hunted for proof of the Romans in Central Asia. In the town of Zilizai, in western China, a strange story took root. The people there spoke of their ancestors as warriors from the West. Their faces, some with sharper noses, lighter eyes, and hair unlike their neighbors, stood out. Even their traditions, from bullfighting festivals to defensive walls built in a Roman style, echoed another world. Could this be the final resting place of Rome's lost army? Genetic studies found traces of European ancestry in the villagers, though not conclusive enough to prove they were Roman. Still, the idea captured imaginations. A village born from the blood of legionaries, forgotten by history but alive in memory. Yet, the mystery deepens. The desert erases evidence quickly. Sand buries bones, cities vanish beneath dunes, and empires fall silent. Without written records, we are left only with fragments. A Chinese report of men in strange formations, a village with European traits, a legend passed down in whispers. The Romans themselves would have seen this as a tragedy, a mighty army reduced to exile and silence. But in another way, it's a strange kind of immortality. These men may have died far from Rome, yet their story still breathes 2,000 years later. And here lies the haunting question. Did the desert truly swallow an army whole, or did Rome unknowingly plant seeds of its legacy at the very edge of the world? Sometimes the greatest mysteries are not in the empires we build, but in the shadows we leave behind.